Tonight, federal agents raided an $8 million estate linked to a foreign regime. What they found inside shocked investigators.
4:37 a.m., Edina, Minnesota. The luxury estate sat in darkness. No movement on the street, no lights in the windows, just frost on the black iron gates and silence. Behind those gates, a secret had been buried for years. Federal agents were about to uncover it. At precisely 4:41 a.m., unmarked SUVs rolled to a stop 3 blocks away. Doors opened without sound. ICE and DEA agents stepped onto frozen pavement. Tactical gear, night vision, suppressed radios. This wasn't a routine operation. The target was a $8.7 million estate registered under a shell corporation. The real owner had ties that reached 2,400 miles south to Caracas, Venezuela, to Nicolás Maduro's inner circle, to billions in narco-trafficking proceeds. The order had come from Washington 48 hours earlier. Agents moved through the pre-dawn cold, breath misting, boots crunching ice. A battering ram carried between 2 operators swung low and ready. The first gate fell at 4:52 a.m. Metal screamed, hinges shattered, floodlights erupted across manicured lawns. Dogs barked from neighboring properties. The quiet suburb of Edina had never seen anything like this. If you want the full truth about what they found inside, hit like so this story reaches more people. Inside the estate, panic spread fast. 3 men scrambled for phones. 2 women ran for a reinforced basement door. Security cameras captured everything in thermal imaging. Agents breached the front entrance with precision. Flashbangs detonated in the foyer. Glass from a crystal chandelier rained onto Italian marble floors. No shots fired, no resistance. Within 4 minutes, 7 individuals were on their knees, zip ties secured. Rights read in English and Spanish. Their faces showed shock, then recognition, then fear. They knew why the feds were there. The estate had been under surveillance for 11 months. Every wire transfer, every encrypted phone call, every midnight arrival of black sedans with diplomatic plates. The Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network had flagged the property in February 2025. The numbers didn't lie. Between March 2023 and December 2025, $43.6 million had flowed through accounts linked to the estate. Shell companies in Panama, offshore trusts in the Cayman Islands, real estate purchases across Minnesota, Florida, and Texas, all traced back to Venezuela. Let me show you what agents discovered in the first hour. The main level appeared normal. Expensive furniture, modern art on the walls. A wine cellar stocked with bottles worth $800 each. But in the master bedroom, behind a false wall panel, agents found a floor safe. Inside, $1.2 million in cash, stacks of $100 bills bundled with Venezuelan banking tape, ledgers written in Spanish detailing payments to U.S. officials, names, dates, amounts, a paper trail connecting Minneapolis to Maduro's Cartel of the Suns. This wasn't wealth, this was evidence. Agents moved to the basement. The reinforced door had been left open during the chaos. Motion sensors blinked red. Climate control systems hummed at 68 degrees. What they found next would shock investigators. The basement wasn't a basement. It was a bunker, 20 feet below ground. Concrete walls, 18 inches thick. Air filtration systems designed for chemical attacks. Enough food and water for 6 months. Communications equipment capable of encrypted satellite transmissions. And in the center of the main chamber, a vault. Not a safe, a vault, bank-grade steel, biometric lock, the kind used by governments and cartels when they need to hide something permanent. Comment exposed below if you're ready to see what was inside. Breaching the vault took 40 minutes. Cutting torches, hydraulic spreaders, sparks illuminating the bunker like a welding shop. At 6:18 a.m., the door swung open. 3 DEA agents entered first. Their body cameras recorded everything. The vault contained operational intelligence, 57 phones, all encrypted, all logged with recent activity. External hard drives holding terabytes of communications between Venezuelan officials and their American counterparts. Flight manifests showing private jet routes between Caracas and Minneapolis, St. Paul International Airport. Bank account information for 23 Minnesota residents, judges, city councilors, a state legislator, a deputy sheriff, an immigration attorney. Each name appeared beside dollar amounts ranging from $85,000 to $4.3 million. Payments disguised as consulting fees, legal retainers, campaign contributions. This wasn't isolated corruption. This was infrastructure. But the most devastating discovery sat in a climate control cabinet. 18 kilograms of uncut cocaine, lab-grade purity, street value $3.2 million, packaged in bricks stamped with the logo of Colombia's Gulf Cartel, a Maduro-affiliated organization responsible for flooding American cities with narcotics since 2019. The cocaine wasn't for sale, it was for leverage. Evidence suggested the drugs were used to compromise officials, planted in vehicles during traffic stops, discovered during staged raids, careers destroyed, reputations ruined, silence guaranteed. If this shocks you, hit like now. Outside, dawn broke over Edina. News helicopters circled overhead by 7 a.m. Local police established a perimeter 3 blocks wide. Neighbors emerged in bathrobes and slippers, filming with phones. Federal vehicles lined the street like a military convoy. Minneapolis field offices for ICE and DEA had emptied overnight. Over 140 agents deployed across the Twin Cities. Simultaneous raids executed at 7 additional locations: a downtown law office, 2 luxury condominiums in Uptown, a warehouse in northeast Minneapolis, a suburban home in Bloomington, a private airfield hangar in Anoka County. Each location tied to the same network. The investigation had begun quietly in March 2025. A routine financial audit flagged unusual real estate transactions, properties purchased for cash, minimal documentation, owners listed as LLCs with no operating history. A single analyst at the Treasury Department connected the dots. Shell companies in Minnesota traced back to shell companies in Florida. Those traced to the Bahamas. From there, the money trail led to Venezuela, to accounts controlled by individuals sanctioned by the U.S. government, to names appearing on DEA watch lists for narco-terrorism. The analyst's report landed on the desk of an ICE supervisor in April. By May, the FBI's International Corruption Unit had joined. By June, wiretaps were authorized. By August, undercover agents had infiltrated the network. One posed as a corrupt banker, another as a real estate attorney willing to facilitate illegal transactions. Type yes if you're ready to see how deep this conspiracy reached. The scale became clear by September. Over $2.1 billion had been laundered through U.S. real estate since 2019. Not just Minnesota, luxury properties in Miami, Houston, Los Angeles, and New York, mansions purchased under false names, penthouses owned by trusts with Venezuelan board members. Maduro's regime had built an empire on American soil. The money originated from cocaine trafficking, from oil revenues siphoned through corrupt PDVSA contracts, from mining operations controlled by military officers loyal to Caracas. Every dollar represented suffering, addiction, overdose deaths. The DEA estimated the network was responsible for trafficking 47 tons of cocaine into the United States between 2019 and 2025. 47 tons, enough to supply every major city east of the Mississippi for 6 months. Enough to fuel gang violence in Chicago, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. Enough to destroy families in small towns across Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia. The human cost couldn't be calculated, but the financial cost was staggering. Federal prosecutors estimated $18.4 billion in lost tax revenue. Billions more spent on law enforcement, emergency services, and addiction treatment program. Communities devastated. Trust in institutions eroded. Share this so more people understand what's happening in their own cities. Back in the Edina estate, evidence collection continued through the morning. Forensic accountants photographed every page in the ledgers. Digital specialists cloned the hard drive. Chemists tested the cocaine samples. Agents interviewed the 7 detainees separately, searching for contradictions. One of the detainees broke by 9 a.m. His name was Javier Colon, a Venezuelan national living in the U.S. on an expired visa. He'd been employed as a property manager for 3 years, paid in cash, $8,000 per month. His job was simple: maintain the estate, accept deliveries, and never ask questions. He told agents about the visitors: men in expensive suits arriving after midnight, women with diplomatic credentials, conversations in hushed Spanish about shipment, payments, and schedules. Colon had seen faces he recognized from Venezuelan state television: officials, military officers, people who shouldn't have been in Minnesota. He gave names: Carlos Mendoza, Deputy Minister of Interior Affairs, visited twice in 2024. Ana Ruiz, Director of Venezuela's National Customs Service, stayed for 3 days in August 2025. Rafael Bermudez, a general in the National Guard, present during a meeting where $6 million in cash was counted and divided. Each name appeared in the ledgers. Each name was now on a federal arrest warrant. Comment your reaction if you believe justice is coming. By noon, the raids had produced devastating results: $127 million in cash and assets seized, 17 arrests across Minnesota, evidence linking the network to 43 compromised officials, bank accounts frozen in 6 states, properties red flagged for forfeiture proceedings. But the operation had consequences. On January 8, 2026, ICE agents attempted an arrest in South Minneapolis. The target resisted. A confrontation escalated. An agent fired. A woman named Renee Good, 37 years old, was killed. The city erupted. Protests spread through Minneapolis by evening. Crowds blocked intersections. Chants echoed through downtown. ICE out of Minnesota. Vigils held by candlelight. Grief mixed with rage. The shooting became a flashpoint for tensions simmering since the federal operation began. By January 10th, nationwide protests ignited. Thousands marched in solidarity. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Portland, Seattle. Signs reading "Justice for Renee Good" and "No raids without accountability." The Department of Homeland Security faced pressure from state officials demanding transparency. The Trump administration responded by deploying hundreds more agents to Minnesota. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced the decision on January 11th. "We will not be deterred by violence or intimidation," she said during a Fox News interview. The move sparked accusations of overreach. Civil rights organizations filed lawsuits. Local law enforcement expressed concern about jurisdiction conflicts. Minnesota was becoming a battleground. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next in this unfolding crisis. Behind the chaos, the investigation continued. Federal prosecutors in Manhattan prepared indictments. The evidence from Edina formed the backbone of a sprawling case targeting Maduro's financial network: narco-terrorism, money laundering, corruption of public officials, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. The charges carried life sentences. By mid-January, 34 individuals faced federal prosecution. 11 had ties to the Venezuelan government. 8 were U.S. citizens. 4 held dual citizenship. 3 were immigration attorneys who facilitated visa fraud for cartel operatives. The network's sophistication stunned investigators. Encrypted communications routed through servers in Russia and China. Payments disguised as legitimate business transactions. Real estate purchased through layers of shell companies designed to obscure ownership. Financial instruments so complex they required forensic accountants with advanced degrees to unravel. This wasn't amateur crime. This was state-sponsored operation, and it had been happening under federal noses for years. The deeper agents dug, the more they found. Connections to Florida properties seized from Maduro associates in August 2025. Links to a $450 million forfeiture case in Miami involving luxury yachts and show horses. Ties to Venezuelan officials charged with narco-terrorism in 2020, a web spanning continents and decades. The Edina estate was just one node. If you believe this story needs to be told, comment justice below. As evidence mounted, questions emerged about institutional failure. How had this network operated undetected for so long? How had billions moved through the American financial system without triggering alarms? How had Venezuelan officials traveled freely despite sanctions and watch lists? Some answers pointed to corruption. The compromised officials identified in the ledgers had actively shielded the network. Judges dismissed cases. Legislators blocked investigations. Law enforcement officers provided advance warnings about raids. Immigration attorneys manipulated visa processes to bring operatives into the country. The betrayal was systemic. Other answers pointed to resource limitations. The Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network processed millions of suspicious activity reports annually. Analysts worked with outdated software and insufficient staffing. Patterns emerged only when dedicated investigators spent months manually connecting data points. The system was overwhelmed. Still, other answers pointed to geopolitical complexity. Venezuela was a sovereign nation. Diplomatic norms constrained aggressive action. Extradition treaties had been suspended. International cooperation was minimal. Maduro's regime operated with impunity, protected by alliances with Russia, China, and Iran. The challenges were immense. But the operation in Minnesota proved something critical. When agencies coordinated, when intelligence was shared, when political will existed, results followed. The Edina raid represented collaboration between ICE, DEA, FBI, Treasury, and local law enforcement. Months of surveillance, careful planning, precision execution. Justice was possible. Share this video so more communities demand accountability. The seized assets told their own story. The $8.7 million Edina estate, a $3.4 million condominium in uptown Minneapolis, a $2.1 million property in Bloomington, a warehouse valued at $1.8 million, 2 luxury vehicles worth $340,000 combined, cash totaling $127 million, jewelry and artwork appraised at $6.3 million, total value $149.6 million from Minnesota alone. Add the Florida seizures, the New York properties, the Texas holdings, the California mansions. The total approached $2.1 billion, billions that should have been feeding Venezuelan citizens suffering under dictatorship. Billions stolen and laundered and used to corrupt American institutions. Billions that represented countless lives destroyed by addiction and violence. The scale demanded a reckoning. Federal prosecutors announced they would seek maximum penalties. Asset forfeiture proceedings would return seized properties to public use. Funds would be redirected to drug treatment programs and anti-trafficking operations. A message would be sent. American soil was not a safe haven for narco-terrorists. But prosecutions take time. Trials could last years. Appeals would follow. Some defendants would cooperate for reduced sentences. Others would fight. The legal battles would be complex, expensive, and protracted. Meanwhile, the network would adapt. History showed cartels evolved quickly. New routes, new methods, new accomplices. The Edina operation disrupted one branch, but Maduro's regime controlled resources worth billions. They would rebuild. They would find new vulnerability. They would continue. The fight was far from over. Comment below if you believe America needs to do more to stop this. The Minnesota operation revealed uncomfortable truths. Luxury real estate had become the preferred method for laundering narco proceeds. Cash purchases, minimal documentation, weak oversight. Properties appreciated while hiding dirty money. When needed, they could be sold or mortgaged, converting illicit funds into clean capital. The Treasury Department had warned about this for years. In 2016, geographic targeting orders attempted to increase scrutiny on high-value real estate transactions, but enforcement was inconsistent. Loopholes remained. Shell companies obscured ownership. Real estate agents prioritized commissions over compliance. The system invited exploitation. Minnesota wasn't unique. Every major city faced the same vulnerability. Miami had seized hundreds of millions in Venezuelan-linked properties. New York had frozen penthouses owned by sanctioned oligarchs. Los Angeles had uncovered cartels using real estate to store wealth. The problem was national, but solutions required political will. Stronger anti-money laundering law, enhanced reporting requirement, transparency in shell company ownership, international cooperation on asset tracking, increased funding for financial crimes units. Progress was slow. Special interests resisted regulation. Real estate lobbies opposed transparency measures. Banks complained about compliance costs. Privacy advocates raised concerns about surveillance overreach. Reform stalled in Congress. Meanwhile, cartels exploited the status quo. Maduro's network was one of dozens operating in the United States. Mexican cartels, Colombian organizations, Russian oligarchs, Chinese triads, all using similar methods, all hiding behind the same loopholes. The Minnesota raids were a victory, but they were also a warning. Hit like if you believe Congress must act now to close these loopholes. As January 2026 unfolded, the political dimension intensified. The Trump administration cited the Minnesota operation as justification for increased immigration enforcement. Secretary Noem argued that border security and anti-cartel operations were inseparable. Critics countered that the shooting of Renee Good represented government overreach and excessive force. The debate became partisan. Democrats demanded investigations into the use of force. Republicans called for expanded ICE authority. State officials clashed with federal agencies over jurisdiction. Civil liberties organizations filed lawsuits challenging surveillance methods. Minnesota became a proxy for larger conflict. Protests continued through mid-January. Vigils for Renee Good drew thousands. Counter-protests supporting ICE agents drew hundreds. Tensions simmered. National media descended on Minneapolis. The story dominated cable news cycle. The human cost of policy became unavoidable. Lost in the political noise was the original mission. Dismantling a narco-trafficking network, recovering billions in stolen assets, holding corrupt officials accountable, protecting communities from the poison flooding American streets. The work continued quietly. Federal agents followed leads from the Edina evidence. New targets identified. New surveillance operations launched. New warrants prepared. The investigation expanded beyond Minnesota into Wisconsin, Iowa, and the Dakotas. The network was larger than anyone initially suspected. And it wasn't just Maduro. Connections emerged to other Venezuelan officials, to Colombian cartels, to Mexican trafficking organizations, to corrupt politicians across Latin America. A web of criminality spanning continents. Unraveling it would take years. If you want updates on this case, subscribe so you don't miss critical developments. The Edina estate now sits empty. Yellow crime scene tape still flutters across the gates. Windows dark, lawns overgrown, a monument to corruption and betrayal. Inside, forensic teams finished their work in late January. Every surface dusted for prints, every document photographed, every electronic device analyzed. The bunker sealed and secured for potential trial evidence. The property will be auctioned. Proceeds directed to victims of narco-trafficking. The 7 individuals arrested that morning faced decades in prison. Javier Colon agreed to cooperate. His testimony will be crucial in prosecuting higher-level targets. The others await trial, held without bail due to flight risk. Their lives are over. The 43 compromised officials face their own reckoning. Some have resigned. Others maintain innocence. Investigations proceed. Grand juries convene, indictments multiply. Trust in Minnesota institutions has been shaken, but the response has been decisive. State legislators introduced anti-corruption reforms. Law enforcement agencies reviewed vetting procedures. Community organizations demanded transparency. Citizens mobilized for accountability. Democracy was tested. Democracy responded. Across the nation, the Minnesota case became a catalyst. Other states launched reviews of suspicious real estate transactions. Federal agencies increased coordination. International partners shared intelligence. The fight against transnational crime intensified. Progress, however incremental, was real. Share this story so more people understand the threat hiding in plain sight. The broader lesson is stark. Criminal networks don't respect borders. They exploit weaknesses in legal systems. They corrupt institutions built on trust. They invest billions in subverting the rule of law. Fighting them requires matching their sophistication, coordination between agencies, international cooperation, political will, adequate resources, public vigilance, and it requires understanding the stakes. This isn't just about money. It's about the soul of American institutions, about whether laws apply equally, about whether foreign dictators can operate with impunity on U.S. soil, about whether communities are safe from the violence that follows narco-trafficking. The answers matter. The Edina raid proved that when America commits to justice, results follow. When agents work together, when evidence is followed wherever it leads, when no one is too powerful to prosecute, the system can work. But it requires constant effort, vigilance against corruption, resistance to complacency, demand for accountability. The fight continues every day. Hit like if you believe justice is worth fighting for. Comment accountability if you want officials to answer for their crimes. Subscribe so you're informed as this case develops. Share this video before it's buried by algorithm, because this story isn't over. The indictments will multiply, the trials will dominate headlines, the appeals will last years, and through it all, the networks will adapt, evolve, and persist. This is only the beginning of a longer war, a war fought in courtrooms and financial databases, in encrypted communications and asset forfeiture proceedings, in international treaties and extradition hearings, a war where every victory reveals new fronts. The Minnesota operation exposed one tentacle of a global beast. Cutting it off was necessary, but the beast has many arms, and it's learning, adapting, finding new vulnerabilities. The question isn't whether America can win one battle. The question is whether America has the will to fight the war. That answer will define the next decade. It will determine whether foreign cartels and corrupt regimes can buy their way into American society, whether luxury estates can hide blood money, whether billions can flow unchecked through financial systems, whether justice is just an ideal or a living practice. The people of Minnesota are watching. The families of overdose victims are watching. Communities devastated by gang violence are watching. They're waiting to see if their government will protect them. The Edina raid was a promise. A declaration that no one is untouchable, that corruption will be exposed, that networks will be dismantled, that justice, however delayed, will come. Now comes the hard part, keeping that promise. Every day, in every city, against every threat. Because the cartels aren't resting, Maduro's allies aren't surrendering, the networks aren't dissolving, they're regrouping, and America must be ready.